coming to our first in a long time general meeting for the Old Speedway City Neighborhood Association. This is being recorded, so we'll make sure that we share this on our Facebook page, and then if any of our members aren't here, just because of reasons, they'll be able to watch this. So as our headliner, and it's amazing that we're able to have a person who has been with Old Speedway Neighborhood Association for a long time, and with all the other things she does, but Bev Katterhenry is going to be presenting for the Speedway Trails, and so she'll be giving explanation about the history of the trails and what is going on with trails, and then I just have a little bit of just general information at the very end, and then we do have some community organizations that have a little thing that they want to share with us as well. So Bev, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and I figured that since it's being recorded, I probably should give a little history so we're all in context and up to date on what's going on. So in 1993, the city of Indianapolis, Indy Parks, came to the town of Speedway Town Hall and presented that you have an abandoned railroad in the town of Speedway, and there is federal money that you can build a trail on it. Of course, nobody in Speedway at the time was interested, but Diana Virgil and her husband Hall were at that meeting. They live in Hendricks County. The abandoned B&O Railroad went near their house, and they were avid bicyclists. And so they got really involved and started organizing the B&O Trail Association in Hendricks County. Unfortunately, shortly after 1993 and about 1996, adjacent property owners started arguing over who owned the abandoned railroad. And so there was a class action lawsuit that took 10 years to resolve. So in 2003, the Indy Parks came back to Indianapolis, came back to Speedway, and presented the results of the class action lawsuit. It's on, we've got the documents, we read it constantly. I could almost quote it for you. It says the adjacent property owners, you split the railroad in half, and each adjacent property owner on each side gets half of the railroad bed according to where their property lines intersect. There are sections of the railroad that CSX actually purchased, and so they do own parts of this, and that is part of our grant application that we're working on now. But in 2003, a bunch of people showed up at Town Hall. Indy Park says you have rights to this abandoned railroad. They didn't know it before they got into that meeting. In that meeting, in about split second, they all got angry and says, that's my property, you're not going to build a trail on my property. So it kind of went from, I didn't own it and I didn't care, to, hey, it's mine, you can't have it. And it took a struggle. There were some people here in Speedway. Of course, Diana Virgil was there with the B&O Trail Association. She knew about the class action. There was a group that formed here in Speedway, B&W Plumbing, Jerry Bratton, and Sharon Ziska, a few of you know about. They tried to organize a trail group in 2003. The adjacent property owners went to the town council and said no, so the town council said no. And so nothing happened. But then we got a redevelopment commission going here in Speedway, and in 2007, B&O Trail Association in Hendricks County came back to Speedway and said, you've got a jewel here, it's just, you have to develop it, you have to make this abandoned railroad a trail. And I was an adjacent property owner, and I said, not on my property, you're not going to, I make money on that, I park cars, you're not going to make a trail on my property. So I went to their meetings to see what they were doing and who they were and what was going on, and 2 months later I was president. So you always have to keep an open mind. You just never know what you're going to hear and what's going to happen. So I knew about the railroad bed where my property was, but I didn't know anything else. I went to Leonard Park. I stood there at the playground and I looked at the railroad, and it weeds and trees and brush everywhere. I couldn't even see the railroad bed. Found a tiny little path up the steep embankment and walked up, and there was a trail. It was about 2 feet wide. You could see someone had taken a chainsaw and cut a branch that had fallen so that you could walk. A trail that was actually being used because it was obviously there. And it was lovely. It was like walking a door, opening a door, walking into the woods, and walking on a trail. It was a beautiful little experience. But then I turned around, and I looked at the park, and I could see every kid and every single parent. They could not see me. I was hidden. Panic set in. And I said, we got to make it safe. We can't have this to be an unsafe position. If people are actually using it, it's got to be safe. So we started organizing clearings. We cleared 5 feet and then 10 feet. That's how I met my late husband. We have a little country song that he had a chainsaw and I had a tractor, and we cleared the trails together. And that's how we got together. That's how we got married, because we were out there working on the trail, making it a safe place. So about 2011, I think it was, I helped Barb Lawrence, the town manager, write a grant application to build the B&O Trail and Speedway. So we got it started, and of course the town's got it built, and it's a beautiful trail. It not straight, it winds, but it's still a lovely trail to walk on. The Speedway Trails, we organized the nonprofit Speedway Trails, and we bought the trail along Crawfordsville Road. It's called the P&E, the Peoria Eastern, and we bought that, and with grant money, we paved that. It's supposed to be a 5-mile loop, as most of you know. Main Street, we convinced the Redevelopment Commission to put in a bike path. So Main Street has the bike path, and you could walk the B&O up Main Street and the PD. It's supposed to connect to the Eagle Creek Trail, but the Indy Parks hasn't had the money to build the Eagle Creek Trail, but someday we'll work on that. That's up to date now. In 2019, May 2nd, Speedway Trails received a $4.89 million grant from the state of Indiana. Next Level Trails is what it's called, to connect Speedway, the 1.6 miles of the section in Speedway, to connect it downtown to the Culture Trail. Our section goes to Michigan Street. Indy Parks is building a bike path to connect to the White River Trail, which connects to the Culture Trail. We, of course, being Speedway Trails, and I have a little plastic recycled pretzel jar that says donations, and I'd get my $1 or $2 donations. So I didn't have the $1.2 million matching fund that's required for grants. Back in, I think it's 2013, the city of Indianapolis came to Speedway Trails and says, you need to do pedal and park. How many of you know what pedal and park is? Basically, the city of Indianapolis provides equipment so that you can make a corral so that people could ride their bicycles to events. Ride your bike to the ballpark, but you don't want to leave it there unguarded. Ride it to an art show like Broad Ripple Art Show or the State Fair, but you kind of leery just leaving your bike out. So Indianapolis provided a parking corral, and nonprofits manage it, and they get the money from the bicyclists that pay to park. So Indianapolis came to Speedway Trails and says, you need to do it for the Indy 500 race. Again, here I am. Are you crazy? Who rides a bicycle to a car race? It just didn't make sense. So I didn't do it the first year. They came back the second year and go, okay, I'll do it just to see what happens and to prove that who rides a bicycle to a car race. First year we had 60 bicycles. I go, wow. Second year we had 120. Then we had 300. And then another group came in and wanted to make it a big event. And so they met downtown, had food, had music, and everybody got together, and they got a police escort to Daredevil, and they parked their bikes. 800 bicyclists. Like, wow. Who would have thought that many people would ride a bike? The reason I'm telling you this, one of the people in that 800 was the CEO of Central Indiana Community Foundation. Central Indiana Community Foundation is the group that came up with the money to build the cultural trail. Brian Payne swore up and down he would never go to a 500 race. He would never park his car in traffic like that and sit in traffic, and so he'd never go. But he heard about the bicycle ride. I'd been hammering on him for years. He heard about the bicycle ride, so he rode his bike and thought that was awesome. He rode his bike, had a great time, got in and got out without any problems, and decided the B&O Trail needed to connect to Speedway. Plus, for Central Indiana Community Foundation, they serve underserved communities. Hallville and the Fairfax area needed the help. They need it now. They needed help. They need to be made a better place. And so that's what Central Indiana Community Foundation does. They help the underserved communities. So they're the ones giving us the matching funds of $1.2 million. My little plastic jar is retired. I think about it occasionally. So our grant started May 2nd of 2019. It has to be finished by December 30th of 2022. So we have to connect our grant. Some of you have this map here. So we get to go east. The eastern part of the B&O that's finished in the town of Speedway is at Allison Way. And we get to go east to Michigan Street. And then we also get to go west to where the trail ends at Eagle Creek. We get to build that bridge. It's a 200-foot-long bridge that's been gone for years. Everybody wants it. We get to build that bridge as part of our grant application. And then we get to go about halfway through Farley. Do everybody know where Farley is? We get to go about halfway to Country Club Road, and then we run out of money. So the B&O Trail Association in Hendricks County applied for the grant. You only get $5 million max, and we got 4.89, so we couldn't reapply. So B&O Trail Association in Hendricks County has 6 miles of trail completed in Hendricks County, and it ends at Marion County line, Raceway Road. So they got the grant just this year. They didn't get the first round like we did, so they just got their grant money. They got $4.58 million, and a lot of you know about the bicycle rides that they have done for 25 years, 26, 27 years, and they've raised all the money themselves except for about $200,000 that CICF is giving them. I don't know the exact number, but it's something around there. So theirs has to be finished by January 31st of 2025. So by 2025, we will have somewhere around 17 to 20 miles of finished B&O trail. That's where we are right now, raising money still. So on our map up here that we have, and unfortunately they did green lines for the completed trail, so it's really hard to see, but you can see in Speedway there's a green line on each side of the blue lines. The blue lines is what Speedway Trails grant is, and we'll be going east and we'll be going west. The yellow lines are the lines that B&O Trail Association in Hendricks County will be building. So they're in the design phase. Our design phase is done. We're in the getting ready to bid phase for construction. We bid it in June, and it came extremely over budget. So we are cutting down. CICF wants to make the community better, so they wanted sidewalks and drainage and all sorts of fancy things that the grant doesn't really support. So we had to say, no, we can't do that. We can only build trails. So we're knocking down our budget, and so we could get this trail built, and we will rebid again in September, and they will be building it this winter to be finished by December 22. So the 2 blue lines will be finished by December 2022. The yellow lines will be finished by January of 25. And you see the gap. B&O owns about a little over half of that railroad land. There are 6 houses, B&O Trail Association owns about 3/4 of that gap area, but there are 6 houses there that don't want Indianapolis people in their backyard. So they don't want us out there, so they're not going to sell us the railroad. So we are working with the county. They said we could use the road to walk around, so we could build on their easement sidewalk in these people's front yards, or these people can allow us to go in their backyard on the railroad. So we're working on it. We're trying to figure it out. We don't know what's going to happen here, but there is a workaround in case we don't get it. So that's a summary of where we've been and where we're going. We're pretty excited about all the money that's coming into the west side of Indianapolis. We have the support of the mayor and, of course, the governor and all the local politicians, and they're really happy that we're developing the west side of Indianapolis. And that's about it for what my notes have. Are there any questions? Jan?
On the yellow lines, what is the surface of those at this point? Are they just marked out, or is it
The first yellow line is gravel. The green line, of course, is 12-foot paved.
Yeah.
But the yellow lines currently, the first yellow line is gravel, the second yellow line is overgrown brush like ours, near west side. So they'll be clearing and paving it. I don't know that, I think the first yellow line is going to be 12-foot paved, and after that it'll be gravel the rest of the way. I don't think they're going to pave out in the country.
And what about the yellow ones on the way downtown?
The one next to our blue line, that'll be a 12-foot paved trail.
And at this point?
It's overgrown brush, yes. It's just like when we started. We got a group together last year, probably 50 people showed up, and there's probably 10 chainsaws. And we cleared about a 5-foot path so that the surveyors and the appraisers could get back there and see what was back there. Of course, if you know invasive brush, once you cut it down, it comes back 10 times the size. And we didn't have the weed killer to kill it, so it's overgrown again. But the bulldozers should take care of it quickly. Yeah.
I see you've been working on the B&O, the blue.
Yes, it's called the Near West. We call that Near West because that's the area that they're labeled as they call themselves.
Yeah, and then the yellow line is kind of straight over to the river. Will that follow Michigan?
That's the bike path that the Indy Parks is supposed to be building. They received a grant 2 years ago, and they're supposed to finish that about a year after we finish ours.
But along Michigan?
Along Michigan. They're going to make a dedicated bike path. You remember Cunningham, how they narrowed and made bike paths on both sides and a turn lane and 1 lane of traffic instead of 4 lanes of traffic? They're going to do that to Michigan. They're going to narrow it, to dye it to the street and make a bike path and a turn lane to make it more safe and parking on both sides and all that. So it's taking a while to get the design and the legal part done. That's why they started before us and they'll finish after us. Plus, it's the city.
Yeah.
So, yes.
$4.89 million. Was some of that spent on land acquisition?
Absolutely, yes.
You know what percent? Like over half?
Oh, no. First of all, Near West is an underserved area. So the land market, the land sales, we had to use an NDOT appraiser, an NDOT certified appraiser, and it had to be approved by DNR. So the appraisals are very small, little cheap. I hate to say that. So we bumped it up a little bit so that we could help the community. Now, the Far West, the B&O Trail Association will be negotiating the price. You don't have to pay the appraised value. You can pay less. you can't pay more. So we didn't even ask the people in the near west for a bargaining to pay less, because, you know, you're going to bargain $500 or $1,000, it's just give them the money and help the community. So percentage-wise, probably 1/10 of the budget for us.
And the bridge, when do you see?
That's $1 million bridge.
I want to see a picture of it. When do you see construction starting on that?
Hopefully this winter. Hopefully this winter. Yeah, it should be, it's got to be done by 22, December 22, so they need to get started on it. And the access from the west side of that is overgrown brush. You can't even get to it. So it needs, they'll have to clear the brush in order to get to build that bridge, because we're not going to let them on the Speedway Trail. We don't want them to tear up what's already there. Yeah, Julie?
Where will that bridge be? Will it be north or south of 21st Street?
It's where the old railroad crossed, you know where Westwood Country Club is? Right there.
Oh,
Right where the Speedway Trail B&O ends. You go straight right across. The abutments are still there. Yeah, they took the bridge out, but the abutments are solid and still there, and we will be using those abutments to build the bridge on. So,
do you have a website?
speedwaytrails.org.net, speedwaytrails.net. It's our membership drive, so you could go on there and sign in and become a member or just donate. We've got those little QR codes. Is that what? We got that too, so you could donate through the QR code. We do a lot of volunteer work in the near west area, because volunteers get $10 an hour credit for our matching funds. So we get as many volunteers to, and there's trash. At Concord, we've now had 3 40-yard trash dumpsters filled. Every time we clean up, they come back and dump more. So we're trying to educate the community. We're trying to get signs up to, this is not a dumping site, but they really need the trail to get built, and then it'll look nicer and it won't look like overgrown weeds and easy to hide your dump. So
That's that area back in behind the big lots?
that's not going to happen anytime soon. Sexton Properties owns the apartment complex in that property, and they told us to get off. They didn't want the trail. The Eagle Creek, no, yeah, the Eagle Creek Trail behind their property, Indy Parks had to take them to eminent domain to get that, to build the Eagle Creek Trail. So Sexton's against trails. They don't like them near their apartments. So that part behind the big lots won't, as far as we know, won't happen anytime soon. We'll have to find another connection. We're looking at sidewalks. There's sidewalks around most of it, so we could use sidewalks to get connected, but we got to get the Eagle Creek Trail built first, so working on it.
That's a different trail though, isn't it?
Different from, it's the Eagle Creek Trail. It starts up at Eagle Creek Park, goes all the way down to Lily on Raymond. Supposed to. They built the north half, north fourth, and the south fourth, and they ran out of money for the middle half. So we're the second fourth, and
Okay, I'm being dumb, but where does that fall? Can you kind of trace it
the Eagle Creek Trail crosses our B&O trail there at the bridge.
at the bridge that you're going to build?
Yeah. And basically, they're going to follow the levee up to where the new Get Go gas station is. It follows the Eagle Creek all the way up there. And then it'll follow, because there's a Girl Scout camp along the Eagle Creek Trail and a gun club, the trail's not going to go there. And the neighbors that live there don't want the trail in their backyard. So there's a little road along 136, so the trail's going to go there. And I think it'll cross at the light and then continue up the Eagle Creek Trail to, right now, the Eagle Creek Trail ends at, is that 74? Right there, just Dandy Trail and 74.
Right.
So it'll connect there someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've had your plate full for the past year or two. Are you back going to be our to-go person if we have questions? And
Sure. I've been freed up. Sad way to go, but that's what life is about.
appreciate you.
Anything else? I don't know how much time I took. It seems like it went by in a second. But thank you for having me, and we're on Facebook, Speedway Trails on Facebook, and we also have our website, speedwaytrails.net. Okay, thank you.